Ongoing COVID-19 attendance restraint, this meeting of the Westport Community Preservation Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted. However, every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress may do so by following the remote links listed on the posting line. An audio recording of this meeting will be posted on the town's website as soon as we are able. So I would like to call the regular meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the minutes of the September 8th, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Liz
Second.
Collins, motion to approve.
Tim
Second.
Gillespie, second.
Second by, is there any discussion? All those in favor, please answer the roll call. Hugh?
Aye.
Hugh Morton. Tim?
Tim Gillespie, aye.
John Bell?
John Bell, yes.
Liz?
Liz, aye.
Mark?
Abstain, I wasn't present.
That's okay, let's just leave it like that. Dale?
Dale Weber, aye.
Phil? Phil Weinberg?
Bill Weinberg, aye.
Betty Slade, aye. That's unanimous. The second item on the agenda, if Ross Moran is here. Ross, are you here?
I am.
Is the Berry Hill Farm property CR. I don't see any reason to put that up to share it. We're not going to be able to read it. We have sent it out. Could you just say a couple of words about the process and where we stand now? Ross?
Yep, happy to. So the conservation restriction was crafted in collaboration with the town. Hartnett helped me on that in reflection to similar farm CRs that were done in the past. Santos Waltz Farm. So the Berry Hill Farm is very similar to that one. The town and the land trust will co-hold it in the future once we resell the farm to a new farm owner. So it has been approved by the state. All signatures are on it, including approval by the Conservation Commission and the Board of Selectmen. And we are ready to close on the project on Tuesday. I'm happy to say we've raised all the funds and the attorneys have all the information, and the goal is to close Tuesday. And then we'll begin our process from there to resell the farm to a future farm owner.
Okay, so in the last meeting, we agreed that we would process the check. We realized that it would be very close, so we did have the check drawn and got permission from Jim Hartnett, and I sent permission to Nicole, who also got the CR, and she issued the check, and I believe Ross either picked it up today, or is that right? Did you pick it up today?
Yeah, so I picked it up yesterday, and it is being held in escrow by our attorney pending approval this evening.
Okay, I would like an motion, please, on this
Motion to approve.
approval of the CR.
Motion to approve.
Liz Collins, motion
I'll
to
second it.
approve. Second, Dale Weber. Okay, please answer the roll call. Hugh?
Hugh Morton, aye.
Tim?
Tim Gillespie, aye.
John?
John Bell, aye.
Liz?
Liz Collins, aye.
Mark?
Mark Schmidt, aye.
Dale?
Dale Weber, aye.
Phil?
Bill Weinberg, aye.
Betty Slade, aye. That is unanimous.
No, I'm off.
Thank you very much, Ross.
Thank you very much, committee. We always love working with CBC, and we're very grateful for your support. And we'll keep the committee in the loop as we, progress in the project and are ready to announce a new farmer.
Josh, you
Excellent.
have to arrange for a blueberry sale when the new people come in and take over at some point.
That's right. Yes.
Ceremony.
We will have an open house once the new people are there, Hugh, and so we'll make sure we'll time that just right for blueberries.
Sure.
All right, take care, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Aye.
Dale, did you have something to say? Oh, I guess not. The third item is I think it's still on, Tim. It's the gym railing at the town hall annex, and this is a discussion. I don't know if you have any documentation for it, but it's a discussion. Could you just explain what you're
This
doing?
is the handicap railing in the gymnasium. Yes, we do. We have a quote from a local guy. It's a little over $3,000. If you want me to show it, I can. I don't know if you need to see it.
Well, I don't, if anybody wants it, please let me know. Okay, go ahead and please tell us what the source of funds is.
Actually, I'll open it for myself just so I know what I'm doing here.
Good.
I have to go to the right place.
This is not a new
Okay.
project. Mhm.
Oh, that was something I did. Where did I have it put somewhere? Sorry, I wasn't prepared for this part.
Well, Tim, I don't think we need to look at.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Is that all right with everyone that we don't see this? Tim, it's from which project? The funds?
It's from the gymnasium project, the one that,
The
Has a
town annex
balance.
gymnasium project, yes.
yeah,
With
yep.
remaining funds which are available.
Yep, amazing. Remaining funds will cover it.
So could I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Jim Rainey at 3,000. Second, John Bell,
It's a little more
Um,
than 3,000, but anyways,
3,000, what? Now you know, or I need the number.
Okay. I'll find it. I'm dancing around here.
No.
Okay, we can wait a second unless it's I didn't write anything up on that one.
I sent it to several people.
Did you send it to me, Tim?
I don't remember. I have to,
I don't have it.
shit. I'll find it eventually.
Well,
Can we
how
just
about-
postpone the vote until I have it?
Would you like to postpone the vote and let's move on?
Yeah.
I would like to skip item 4 for now. If everybody is okay, that's the town-owned historic buildings preservation that I was going to speak to. I'd like to speak to it later and let our applicants speak. So we
By the
have,
way, I just found it, if you want to do it now.
well, so I'm going to, I think I can just go ahead and skip 4, but for now I'm going back to Tim. Tim, what is the total amount that you
All
want?
right, I'm
to
going to
use?
try to present this.
Mhm.
That one is the one I want. Spoink. This should come up for you to see.
It's coming up.
Yeah.
Way to go.
All right, $3,600.
Congratulations.
Oh,
Can you guys see that well enough to?
yeah.
Beautiful,
Yes. Yes.
Because
beautiful.
I'm looking at
Good
it on a
job.
separate monitor.
3,600.
So I amend my motion to approve $3,600 to Souza and Sons Iron Works for the handicap rail inside the building, the annex.
Annex
Okay,
Gymnasium, yes.
and the second,
Second.
Dale, please, Hugh Morton, aye. Tim?
Tim Gillespie, aye.
John Bell,
John Bell, yes.
Liz Collins,
Liz Collins, aye.
Mark,
Mark Schmidt, aye.
Dale,
Dale Weber, aye.
Phil,
Phil Weinberg, aye.
Betty Slade, aye. That is unanimous. Good luck, Tim.
I'm sorry, what?
Good luck, Tim.
Oh,
Okay, so now we will be talking about the project at the Sanford School, the American Legion Hall is. And Tony Vieira, who's the commander there, has presented a formal document more than a week in advance. So we're looking at tonight to make a decision to pass that on to the public hearing. We'll try. Of course, it all depends upon the available funds. Tony, are you here?
I haven't seen him come in. And I'm watching my emails and I
Hi.
haven't.
I'm on the phone.
Okay.
Okay, Tony.
Yeah, I do have a problem with my laptop tonight, so I apologize for that, but I did go on by phone.
Tony, Tim will be presenting your case. You can see it. You can't see it now, but he has your project submission sheet up on the first page.
Yeah.
Is there anything, which page would you like him to go to? Or would you like
we
to
can
say something?
start right with the part 2, which would be, I guess, on the second page. It gives a description of the project for the members of the committee.
Okay,
And we did attach photos as well, but I think most people are probably familiar with the building on Sanford Road. And I can go through detail of it if you would like, but it was certainly for over 100 years now used and still is being used as the American Legion building. But it is a town-owned building. It was a Sanford Road schoolhouse in the 1890s and early 1900. And it was referred to as Westport School Building number 15. The veterans actually kind of took responsibility for the building when the state of Massachusetts declared it not acceptable for school use. And the town pretty much just left it there for a while. So the veterans worked with town officials and moved it across the street, and then put quite a large addition on the back of it and raised it up a floor. So they have a lower level in the basement that they have their meetings at. They have a commercial kitchen down there. They have a couple of bathrooms, and over the years, it's been used for a precinct for voting. And recently, we've moved the precinct to Our Lady of Grace Church because of the lack of handicap accessibility in the building. It's a beautiful building inside. We maintain it well. It's clean on a regular basis. We've upgraded. We did some upgrades today, actually, inside the building with fire extinguishers and stuff, made sure they were up to date. So that we've really been responsible as a Legion to maintain the building over the years and use it not only for our purposes, but for the community. We see it as a community center in the North End. It hasn't been used in the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years as a community center, in the last 3 years or so as a voting precinct. And a lot of that really had to do with access to the building downstairs and the bathrooms and areas in terms of upstairs were very limited because of the condition of the ramp, lack of a ramp, let's say, and the condition of the stairs. So what we have in this proposal is kind of a somewhat of a housekeeping, but a preservation of the building. It's a historic building, in in the town's view, and certainly in the Legion's view. We're just as Legionnaires, we're kind of getting to a certain age, and it's kind of difficult to do some of the maintenance work outside. Shingling needs to be done now. The wood needs to be upgraded and painted and scraped down. The CPC in the last few years has been very helpful. We put a new roof on the building that was done with CPC funds, and we also did a window upgrade around the building. And the last thing that CPC had done as well was put in a tight tank outside to deal with some of the septic issues.
Right.
The Legion right now has a little over 100 members. We're committed to support it if that's the interest of the town to do so, but we're not physically in a position where we can do the work outside or really do the necessary upgrades for ADA compliance for the bathrooms and the door getting into the building. So that's what this project is all about, and it's in some detail beyond that, but I would stop at that point. We can go on to the various parts of the application, but maybe there's some questions that through my comments I might have raised with members, and I could respond to any questions anybody may have.
Tony, I just want to tell you that we were, while you were talking, we were looking at the different photos.
Yep.
So thank you. That's helpful. And Tim Gillespie's raised his hand.
Yeah, Tony, I'm noticing that the drawing that I think probably Hebert put together. Okay.
Are you talking about the ramp outside?
Yeah, the ramp that
Yep.
they're showing it extending to the east off of the
Yeah.
deck, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering. I mean, that's like 35 feet extending out, and I don't know how you fit that in there.
No, I'm glad that you brought that up. One of the overviews in detail that we should talk about is how do we access upstairs? And we looked at putting in all kinds of options from lifts to elevators to ramps. And Tim, some years ago, when Lino was the commander of the American Legion, did a very good diagram, and that should be in the package as well.
Yes.
It's actually 4 pages. And, you know, initially when we saw that, it made sense. It filled in an area. It did not take over a parking area, and we thought it did the job. The one drawback people had on it was that it was on the north side of the building, so we were concerned in the wintertime if that was going to be a problem with snow and ice on that side of the building. So we, including Hebert, and we had a couple other folks, Paul Pavo, a couple other folks did different designs. And we always came back to Tim's drawing because it was the most practical. And we felt that because of the sloping and so forth, that it really was probably the, and we shared this, by the way, with the Westport Historical Society, Westport Historical Commission.
Mhm.
And, you know, we went back and forth with them. And I think in everybody's opinion, Tim's proposal was the one that we recommended to the commission. And I talked to the commission earlier this week. I'm not sure they formally voted on it yet because they did have a meeting on Monday night, but I'm assuming they will take a vote on it as well. But I haven't found any opposition to this proposal that Tim has set forth. And our recommendation would be that the town consider, if we're going to have access to upstairs with a ramp, that we go along with this design as outlined in these 4 pages. It really is the most practical one. There's some other folks that were going to give us similar designs to the one that have attached, but when you start looking at the space that's necessary, if you're going to put it in the front of the building, it takes away from some of the other monuments that are there. If you do the other side, it's kind of impractical because there's the stairs that go down to the building and accessing. You can see in the pictures on the left, which would be the south end of the building, if you would. So this really is the most practical, and we think it'll do the job. And the Legion met as a group last Thursday, and that was their. They both went through. There was a lot of debate in terms of other options, and after looking at them, it was unanimously, voted on to endorse Tim's. The town thought that that was the way to go.
Let me identify which is Tim's. We're looking at Tim's right now.
Yeah, it's Homeworks. It was a proposal that was done some years ago, but it's still the most practical one, we think.
So that's the one that you're suggesting, and the Historical Commission's aware of that.
Yes, they are. And if you look at all 4 different copies of it, you can see it from different angles. And we think it's not only the most practical, but it provides from the appearance from the road, it provides, probably the most appropriate way to have the building stand out.
Right.
Another thing, when we're on the outside of the building, we should talk about the shingles that we proposed here in this bid was the suggestion of the Westport Historical Commission, and they were suggesting this yellow cedar, which wears better than some of the other types of options that are available. And it's a bit more costly, but we think it over the long duration of the building, it will probably get the best response in terms of the appearance and also the wearing of the shingle itself. So we at this point feel we need to address access to the building at the lower level as well. And we have been talking to a number of folks about how best to do that. And we think, in our judgment, that we could take out some of the grading area next to the door, that blue door that you see on the left-hand side of those pictures at the lower level, and take out that.
Could you show that? on the left end, on the south side. Mhm.
Oops.
There's
Upside down.
also a stairs that come down to that side of the building.
Yeah, we got it.
We're gonna, we're thinking that it's probably most practical after having a number of people look at that, different contractors, that we kind of regrade that whole area and slope it away a bit more and provide access for wheelchair access to that door. And again, we've talked to folks, the same people that are actually putting in the ADA compliance at Lee's. They met with us again today, and we've come up with some different designs where we could have access by a button on the outside and in the inside, and it would actually work fairly well for folks going in if they're carrying a, if they're going in by a walker, or if they're going in by a wheelchair. Once they get in the building, we're pretty well set, except the bathrooms that we have. We're probably going to raise a toilet and have a higher level toilet, and then change the sink, the position of the sink, and have a sink that a wheelchair could wheel under. But the space part of it, I think we'll be okay with. So one of our bathrooms will be ADA compliant. The other one will be a little smaller and not as, it will be accessed by a lot of folks, I'm sure, but it's not necessarily meeting the ADA standard. But Martin Coster from the Disabilities Commission in town has walked through, and we're going with their advice as well in terms of ADA compliant inside the building. I hope you've got some pictures from upstairs there. I think I sent some along that shows the stage and shows the hall itself. It's beautiful.
Just one
It's in great
second.
shape.
We're going back to those.
Yeah, it's
Just
in great
one
shape,
second, I'll
and
tell you when there's part of the inside now.
yeah,
And then there's another one,
yes.
and that's downstairs.
Yeah, downstairs is what we're using now for meeting purposes, and to some degree, we'll probably continue to use that in the future. But upstairs is an opportunity that had been used for a number of years, still in excellent conditions. We maintain it, and it could be used by the public more. And there is an interest in dance studios and people that would like to just access it for family get-togethers and receptions and those kinds of things. So we saw that as an opportunity to generate some revenue to help pay some of the costs associated with the building, because we handle all the maintenance and all the day-to-day costs associated with it, and we just thought that might be another way of trying to sustain that long term. Plus, it's kind of an opportunity for folks in that neighborhood to have access to a town building for meeting use. Or that was a place where when cable first started, they had a cable studio in that building, for example.
Yeah. Tony, are there a couple of questions out there, Tim?
I think John had his hand up first.
John?
Yeah, Mr. Vieira, Tim, what's the building material going to be for that ramp?
I think it would be principally a pressure treated frame and some kind of composite decking that would go up the ramps.
All right, that's great. That's
Has
what I was
that been
thinking.
approved? Has that been approved by the Historical Commission?
Well, in terms of approval, their point was they were concerned with the exterior of the building. They'd like to see what the appearance was in terms of what we're going to use for the ramp itself. We haven't had that discussion. They had a problem getting a quorum a couple of times. So
Oh,
we have had some formal discussions, and I did call them this week to see if they wanted me to go in to further discuss that. And I was told by the chair that they'd get back to us if there were any issues with it. What I did say, though, I was going to be talking to Tim. We have talked to Heberts, and again, and from the ADA standpoint, we've been taking a lot of direction from Paul Pavo.
Yeah.
And the composite sounds like it's the way to go. Now, if that's something that's acceptable to the folks in the various commissions, it certainly was. The Disabilities Commission was fine. We haven't had any further discussion in terms of any thoughts that they may have from the Historical Commission. So
well, I know that they
that's still
normally,
up in the air, but if they would go along with, that's what's there now, by the way. The last time you folks actually upgraded, you had a composite board in the front, except the spacing wasn't done properly, and there's gaps in it. So you need to reinforce it a little bit different for the levels that they were running the boards across. But we think we certainly we view this as a town building. So we're not trying to say, well, we need to do this or we need to do that. We're looking for town groups to suggest how they would like to see this as a joint effort. So if it's in the interest of the town to continue to maintain this building and preserve it, we're willing to help make that happen. In terms of materials and those kinds of things, we're very open to that. But we have priced it based, I asked Paul Hebert to give us some pricing based on composites. If people decide they don't want to use that and they want to use lumber of a different kind, I think we certainly could adjust to that.
Yes, you can come back with new estimates if it's necessary. Now, Tim?
Yeah, I had a couple things. One is if that ramp design is the one you decide on, it has to be modified somewhat, because you're going to need to make sure that wherever the decking of that thing is more than 30 inches above ground, you can't have any openings bigger than 4 inches. So you're going to have a railing system that is a little more elaborate than what I've represented there.
Understood.
And the other thing is, we face this dilemma of recommending decking for clients, and what we've discovered is there is a product called Garapa. It's like an Ipe wood deck, and it's only like, it's less than $1 a lineal foot more money than one of these composite decks. But it's a beautiful wood that doesn't even need to be treated. It'll never need maintenance of any kind, and it'll weather like like red cedar weathers. It'll just turn a nice silver gray over time, rather than having a composite deck. A composite deck would be a little less expensive in materials.
Tim, could you note those, Tony, will you note that, the Garapa?
Yeah.
And also the railings, because that may change your cost, and also what you give to the Historical Commission to look at.
Sure.
Mark
Yep.
has his hand up, please. Mark,
Okay,
this is Mark
yeah.
Schmidt, who's an architect.
Well, I was. And yeah, with that, I will compliment Tim Gillespie on this drawing. It's a good looking drawing, Tim.
Thanks.
So I'm delighted, by the way, that this is I was worried when that sketch of the ramp coming out off the front of the building to the east was shown. That would not be attractive. But is there just a little more on this ramp? Is there a photograph of this north side of the building that we can look at, or is it not in the packet?
No, it should be in the packet, Mark. If not, I can get you one, or you certainly can. I'd invite you over to the building and I can walk through.
Probably going over there would answer this question, so I'm sorry to ask it. But
Well, the
is
drawing
there
that I did has a projected image of the north side of the building. That's what it looks like.
Right,
Yeah,
yes, it is there. Mhm.
It's very accurate too, in terms of.
Well, what I'm interested in is the site itself, is the grading. So is there parking, in other words, right there, so that somebody using a handicap ramp can park next to the foot of the ramp and access it that way?
There would be, there isn't now, but there would be identified parking on that side of the building and also on the door and the lower level on the other side. So there'd be handicap on both sides of the building. But the grade of the ground in that area it's parking there now. It's very level on that side. The south side is where we have some grading problems entering in a lower level. But that area now is has been used for parking. We're going to lose 4 or 5 parking spaces, but it's about an acre, the whole property, and it's the building, and there's a kind of a horseshoe driveway around that's stone, and everything else is parking. So it was used for a voting precinct for a number of years, and the access right now for the upstairs, unless we do it this way, and you have a couple other drawings that were not certainly as detailed as Tim's, only because when the folks came to it and I showed them what we had, they kind of played around with it, and they came back and said, well, this is probably going to be the best one for you in terms of how it would look. going to come up with another design. There were a couple that almost went right out to the street and came into the sidewalk in the street and into the building, but it would
Okay.
require taking out a lot of the landscaping in the front of the building.
All right, well, let me just ask another question here about this ramp. Could you, just looking at it, there's quite a bit of gradient to overcome, so hence there's a lot of ramp. Could one do some filling on that side of the building to raise the grade up about, I mean, if you raised it up 12 inches, you could eliminate 12 feet of ramp, for instance. So I'm wondering if that's something that might be considered.
I think anything is on the table. I would love to meet you there and we can kind of walk through it. I think the challenge is going to be there's some windows in the lower level on that side.
Okay.
There is some clearance. There's certainly some raising that could be done, but I'm not sure it would be enough to accomplish what we're trying to do here. I think we'd still have a challenge there to some degree. But
Yeah.
This stuff better than I would, and I'd welcome an opportunity to show you that, Mark, and see what you think.
All right. And then my other question is, has there been any other contractor to look at this to get a sort of comparative quote or not?
Yes. Paul Hebert, they're doing the job at Lee's right now. Also, Paul Pavo, who is doing some of the work at Lee's as well. And we had 3 other folks who said they were going to come and look at it. A couple of them came, but they really kind of backed off. So in terms of getting the responses, and some were just they didn't want to tackle it. Others just felt from the timing of it. When I told them, look, we're just looking at designs right now and ideas, and we don't have to commit to this until next June or July sometime. So you get some time to plug it in there. I thought they would still be interested, but I guess the industry is such right now that a lot of the folks are kind of are not really quite sure what their long-term plan is going to be with labor and what it's going to be with supplies. So we have offered to purchase some of the supplies as a town and have them do more of the labor side of it and try to order that in anticipation to some degree. So we maybe make sure we had it next year. They're trying to coordinate the timing of it and the shingles, how many months you have to order the shingles before you could expect them to show, and some of the other stuff's associated with it. And I guess for whatever reasons, they kind of passed on even at this point. Now we're going to put it out to bid anyways.
Yeah,
So they may be, once we do that, they may express an interest and submit a bid at that point, and we may have another design for the ramp, but this is the kind of the design we'd be looking at. And my hope is that we could follow something pretty close to that. But if somebody comes in and says, hey, we want you to take a look at this, I think the town should take a look at it if it makes sense,
Hugh has a question.
Really more observation. I'm just going to go with Tim's comment about certain material which seems to be very superior and costs an extra $1 a foot. I think the people in the industry know better than I do, but my instinct is that labor is the biggest part of any construction project. So better materials which will last longer and postpone the next job are a bargain.
Okay, Tim?
Yeah, I had one comment about the sidewall shingles. You talk about yellow cedar. White cedar shingles right now are hard to get. I have to order them on spec, and I get them about 2 months from when I order them. They're about $81 a bundle. You can get more readily the white cedar shingles that have a stain on them, a weathering stain, and they are more available, and they're, I think, about $10 more per bundle. So I don't know what this yellow cedar shingle is and how available that is or how expensive it is, but I think if you should compare those prices with white cedar and the stained white cedar, which they stock at Dartmouth Building Supply. They can't stock the white cedars. They can't keep them in stock. It takes too long for them to show up. But I just wanted to comment on the yellow cedar. I don't know where you get yellow cedar shingles. I don't know how the availability is, and I don't know how much they cost.
Well, we did have a conversation in quite detail a number of times. The number of folks from the Historical Commission visited the site. and I suggested alternatives to the yellow. But I think it was Bill Kindle and
Red Lawrence.
who both really kind of suggested we go with this particular one from a historical perspective. And they felt that we would not be disappointed in them, and this was the way to go. So that's kind of what we did. Then I got a quote. I asked Paul Hebert if he could give us a price on those, because Paul was a little bit surprised when we mentioned those as well. But I do respect Bill in particular was quite familiar with the various options and the pricing associated with it. And those shingles that we priced, it's in your packet. It's like 70,000 and change, you know, for stripping and putting the shingles on it. This is the biggest cost of the project, pretty much, the shingling outside. But again, part of that's labor that you're going to, you know, allow it for the allowance in there too. But what they were suggesting if there was one thing that stood out with the historical commission, they really wanted us to consider the yellow cedar. And so again, we saw this as a town project. I mean, there's some of us that feel we shouldn't be spending any money with this building, and others are saying, well, we need to maintain it. If the town sees it as a historic building, let's go with the town's wishes and how best to, you know, preserve it in that regard. So that's why we kind of settled on this. But I think you're right, Tim. I think from a cost standpoint for materials, there's some flexibility in that. The most expensive and the least available are the yellow cedar, and we were prepared to do something if this met favorably the historical commission, which is what they were asking. So I know they would be accepted. If you folks felt you wanted to go with that, we were kind of prepared maybe in the spring to put in the order for the shingles, even though we might not get it until town meeting. And, you know, at least we'd have the materials and try to take the next step. I don't know where we'd get the money for it from the
Yeah.
Legion, but we just thought the
Dangerous,
delivery would be a problem.
Well, we
Dangerous.
could
We
get
didn't wanna
pictures
into a
of
situation
different
going into
shingles.
July. We were afraid of waiting on this and going into July and not getting the shingle job done. I mean, you got to kind of coordinate what you're doing outside all together, you know. And we didn't want to start stripping shingles without having the materials to put right back up at the same time. And we want to make sure if we're going to do this and we're getting the funding for it, that, you know, we try to get this done next summer, you know.
Let me say something here. You know, we take the historical commission gives recommendations. We are not required to
Yeah.
take their recommendations. I really think that it might be a good idea if this was discussed fully with the commission, with a couple of people from our committee. And I'm wondering if Mark and Tim would consider attending the next historical commission meeting. It will be before our next CPC meeting, because it might be a good idea to have a discussion on this. Are Tim and Mark willing to do that?
Yeah, I could be persuaded.
It's the first Monday normally of the month. But I don't think the full commission has, you know, said what they're going to do yet. But and because there's a couple other things that seem to be changing tonight, but I'd like to be represented at the meeting if possible, if the two of you could attend. Mark?
Yeah, Betty, I'd be happy to do that. The first Monday in December is December 5th.
Right.
I don't know if that's when the meeting is.
That would be when the meeting is, unless it's a holiday, and then it's the next day.
And
sometime.
what time of day are these meetings?
Well, I think it's at 6.
6
I'd
town
have,
halls.
um,
Town hall.
And where are they?
they're in the basement. No, I think they meet in the selectmen's, where the selectmen meet.
When we met last time with them, they were in the town hall annex, but I don't know if that's a regular meeting place or not.
The regular is in the, I mean, I guess there isn't any regular anymore, but
They've been
from
in the
what I
basement
know
of the
in
town
the
hall.
past, yeah, things, wherever they could get a place. But anyway, you can find that out. We can let you know. We'll let you know. I'll find it out and let you know. But I think, Tony, so we have a total cost here. Could you just go through just very quickly? You want to shingle the outside, go through that, and then give
Yep.
us the total cost that you've come up with.
Sure. We have, the biggest cost is the shingle, and there's a detailed one. The headline is Roland Hebert, the proposal for estimates on materials.
We've got it.
And-
We've
yeah,
got
and
that
we
in front
have-
of us. Mhm.
Right, we have in that, the yellow cedar is what we quoted there. I have the prices on the others, I didn't include it in respect for where the historical commission was going, but I can give you the prices compared to white cedar and so forth. We have the shingling, the labor and material for the shingling. We have the labor and material for the painting of the wood. Some of the wood outside on the sides have to be replaced, they've rotted through and so forth, so we'll be upgrading the trim, if you would, around the windows and the trim on the building. And then we have a different price for the ramp, installing the ramp, and the ramp with materials, taking down the old ramp, putting in a new ramp, trying to utilize anything we can in the old ramp in terms of any of the materials that are available. And then on the side of the building, we have taking out the lower level. We have that door going into that lower level, regrading the outside, putting in a handicap access. At this point, we've budgeted for a door with a handicap access. The door we have is pretty well worn, and we thought we should replace that to tie it right in for the access part of it. Inside the building, we have money set aside for the handicap bathrooms. We revised that a little bit based on the recommendations of the commission in town, the Disabilities Commission. And so all those total up to $158,746. And then to that, we put in the additional work that Paul Pavo was suggesting for ADA compliance to upgrade at the same time on that floor. When we pulled off the side, we had to put it, if Betty, you actually walked up the side stairs, I think, when you went to the building. We're going to be replacing those. They're pressure treated. The material, some of it's still good, but the structure itself is not safe. So we're concerned about that. So we're pulling that out at the same time when we're pulling out that lower level to grade it. And then so there'd be a stairway coming down on that side. So all the materials that we have, we're estimating it's going to be in the range of 175 to 180,000. And that's based on talking to actually 4 different contractors based on the prices of materials and the cost of their labor at these rates right now, in anticipation a little bit, but not going crazy in the future next spring, but anticipation of some, for example, I think the ADA person on the door was saying, if we did the job today, his portion of it would be $2,500, but he actually was giving me a price of $3,000 more because he felt, he wanted to make sure he had enough to complete the job. Obviously, we would turn back any money we had, but we think 180 could get what we're talking about in this proposal done, and hopefully have anywhere from 10,000 to maybe 15 back, but you never know in terms of my intent. Probably get a better idea in terms of estimating materials 6 months to a year out.
I think that's all very clear. Are there any general questions? Anything else anybody wants to bring up?
Betty, I have,
You?
We have one.
I just
Betty, we
wanted to
have
say,
Legion.
I'm just gonna say that with due deference to the historical commission, this building has been there for 120 years, I think. And I would suspect over the years, there may have been variations in what kind of shingles were used for this and that. So what the historical period that frequently comes up, I'm not sure there is one. And I'm not saying don't use the yellow cedar, but I suggest that there should be flexibility there depending upon availability and cost. But pretty much any good shingle, I suspect, should be sufficient. But that's something to discuss with the historical commission. And as Betty is saying, they make suggestions and recommendations. They don't make decisions.
Yeah, so Tony, I believe that you are going to have to put a contingency amount in there, given the inflation rate. Some addition to that, we should expect that. often do that. If you don't use it, you don't. But if you run into very serious problems and you don't have the money, then it's a mess. So it's better to allocate a little more. So I'm hoping that, I mean, is there, let me just ask this one question. Does anybody have any objection to the project as a whole or any parts of it? Okay, I'm not hearing any. So I think this is a project that we understand is certainly within the CPA guidelines. I think that it's it's rehabilitation of the building, which is very clearly in the guidelines, things that you really need to do. We have to put a bathroom now even into the cemetery department and over at the transfer station. So we should have a handicapped accessible there, etc. So I'd appreciate if Tim and Mark would be in touch with Tony. You might be in touch with them, which would be an easier way. If you could find out when the next meeting is, the Historical Commission, if you could all go and have a discussion. And I think we know enough now about what can be and cannot be used. They're certainly not going to allow plastic siding or if that's something like that. But I think there is flexibility in the shingles. Anything else,
Yeah.
Tony?
I don't want to misrepresent I think the Historical Commission probably would go along with something different.
Yes.
So I'm not suggesting that
No.
there's an argumentative piece to this.
No.
I think we kind of took the lead from them. But quite frankly, I think if we told them, look, based on whatever, pricing or concerns or budgets and so forth, I think they'd be pretty flexible. So I don't want to misrepresent what they said in that regard,
Well, I was there. Pricing doesn't convince them. What convinces them is that there are alternatives that are historically good enough. And
Yep.
there are. And that's what I think Mark and Tim can show them. And they know that too. Mhm.
Betty, if I could, there is an area that I think I'd like to express on behalf of the American Legion members. Going forward, if this project is acceptable to everybody, I really think we need to distinguish a bit more the town ownership of the building. Maybe it's done by some kind of restriction or some kind of beyond a plaque situation, and emphasize even on the plaque in terms of the one-room schoolhouse aspect of it from years past as well. Because I'm not sure if you look at it 10 years down the road, will it be 90% handled by American Legion, or will it be more by the town? But at some point, as long as we're able, the veterans will maintain the building and will cover those costs. But I would hope that if we're going to preserve it through CPC funds, that the town looks at this a little bit differently. I appreciate the fact that the Legion has done so much over the last 100 years, but we're not sure what the next 100 is going to be in regards to our ability to do that.
Yes,
we
Tony,
have
that's on our agenda tonight.
Okay,
It's on our agenda to discuss, given that some of these buildings may be sold, what the CPC would ask the town to do if the building was sold. And some type of preservation, restriction, we'll have to consider that. And I know that some of your members wanted that also, as you've just expressed. And so we'll be discussing that tonight. And that may be part of the project's requirement.
we could meet in other places in town. So, as veterans, we appreciate the consideration the town has given us as well. But we see this as a joint venture for the community. And as long as the community sees it the same way, we could be the stewards of maintaining it for them. But
Right.
in terms of long term, I think the town has to see, does this make sense for them as well?
Okay, I think Jim Hartnett's on listening to all of this. He's here. Okay, so I think that it's a viable project and they're just these details, and we'll see you in December.
Okay, and Mark and Tim, I'll get in touch with you. if you'd like to visit, we could, at your convenience, we can meet you over there and walk through anything you'd like to look at. And I'll call the Historical Commission and try to set up a time for their next meeting that we could be on their agenda.
Okay, thank you
Yep.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. The next is is Ken Sullivan is here. The WYAA has come in a few times. We've encouraged them very much to come in to get the projects done. We were hoping that it would, they'd be able to play ball in September, but we ran into climate change and into issues of drought. And I talked to them about this, and I just want for the record, I suggested they come in. They were very hesitant about coming in for this funding, but I suggested we come and we discuss what it is they need, why they need it, and whether the committee feels that, yes, we had hoped that it would have been all finished in September, but other things have overruled that. So I've asked Ken to come in, and he's going to talk to us about what they can do about irrigation. Is that okay? Everybody okay with that?
Okay, as far as I'm concerned, okay.
Okay, Hugh is the liaison. Ken?
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I want to start off by saying,
You're not a
since we
soccer
last met,
field.
what's that?
You're not a soccer field. They wrote you as the soccer field.
Yeah, I noticed that too. They've referred to that several times now. I keep calling it soccer with sticks, field hockey. So I just want to say, first of all, let me start off with good news, because that's always a good thing. Since we met last, softball had a great spring season. Softball, who didn't have a home 2 years ago, brought home the championship for 16 and under Tri-County League at our fields this spring. So
Nice.
that was pretty nice to see. You know,
Congratulations.
they did it with, temporary fencing, and they got it done. And it was just nice to see, not only field hockey, but softball in swing, and baseball's getting there. So glad to report good news on that front. As far as the fencing goes, we're working with RAD now. I'm sure you've all read the correspondence. I believe RAD has till December 31st to complete the fencing at the field. So the fencing that was all agreed upon last year, yes, it did take longer, much longer than we thought, but happily, RAD is showing up to get this done finally. So
Could I just stop there for a moment, and we can cover another item? We got the contract, the final contract today, because with RAD and WYAA. In this case, WYAA is considered a private entity. They did an RFP. They had 2 bids, and they chose the lower one, and it's a good company. And now they've written a contract with them, and that contract is based on the contract that they previously had with RAD, and we went back and forth on it, and the final version was sent to you all tonight. So since you've mentioned this, Ken, could I bring that up now and ask for approval of the CPC for that contract, unless people want to delay that for some reason? Could I have a motion? Don?
Betty, is this for the fence?
No, this is for the fences and the dugouts.
Are they up?
No, this is the contract to do that.
Oh, all right.
It's the contract to perform the work.
All right, we're not paying them until the work's done.
Absolutely not. This is a contract with them to do it.
All right, okay.
And it's up now. They're showing, Tim is sharing it with us. So I'm just, as I said, it's been looked at I've looked at it carefully and others have looked at it. I think that Hugh's been involved in it. So I'd like for an approval of this if
Motion to,
anybody wants to make such a motion.
motion to approve.
Yes, I
Liz
move to approve.
Collins,
I'll second.
Hugh, what did you say?
I say I move to approve the contract.
Okay, Hugh Morton moves to approve the contract, second by
Second, Dale or Liz.
somebody.
Somebody.
Okay, by Dale Weber. Okay, a vote, please. Hugh,
Jim Morton, aye.
Tim,
Tim Gillespie, aye.
John,
John Bell,
John. John? John Bell,
John Bell, aye.
Liz,
Liz Collins, aye.
Mark.
Is this, you didn't get a chance
This is
to
approval
comment.
of the contract.
I know, but is this in line with the numbers that we were looking, weren't we looking at this last year?
Yeah, this is, we approved this at town meeting. It was approved at town meeting. They did an RFP. They got the two bids. This bid is much lower than what they asked for, 304,000.
Okay.
And so they've written a contract with Rad Sports
Right.
based on the contract that they had before. Several of us have looked at it, and now I'm just asking for approval for the WYA to go ahead with the contract.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you, Betty. So Mark Schmidt, aye.
Okay, Phil? Phil,
Phil Weinberg, aye.
Dale,
Dale Weber, aye.
Betty Slade, aye. That's unanimous. Thank you, Ken. So that was the item. It's not shown on here particularly. Okay. Continue, please, Ken, about the project that you are asking about now. You're proposing a new project for WYAA.
Correct. So what we've been up against, obviously we've got the fields planted and everything. In the past couple of years, every time we deal with drought, we get the fields burned. We have to reseed the fields, and it's costing us quite a bit of money. This year we brought in, I think it was $25,000 in a grant from the state of Massachusetts. We brought in some private donors. Then we did a baseball hosted a golf tournament. And I want to say in total, we've probably brought in $35,000 or $40,000. That unfortunately, probably $15,000 of that went to field repair. Field repair every year because the grass can't tolerate the heat. We knew this. We knew eventually we would have to address water, but we're thinking we need to address this sooner than later. So we've gone ahead and kind of did some quotes and did some research. We can't entertain bringing in electricity from the street right now. That alone is close to $300,000. So we looked at American Well and Pump, spoke to them about some wellheads on the property, and then just hooking up some gasoline generators. And then so far we have one quote from Mag Irrigation. It's a field irrigation company. So we've got the start of some quotes here that would keep all our fields wet during droughts, and we could also use the water for prepping the fields before games, keeping the dust down before we start games. Do we want to go to the submission, the WIA
Yes,
submission?
I'd like, yes, to
Yeah.
continue. I don't have questions, I don't think. Hugh, do you have a question?
I'm just gonna say, I think this is something we talked about in the past in anticipation of these kinds of problems. They in fact occurred. And it seems to me that this is a necessary addition to make everything, the investments we made in the past, useful and viable. I think using an $800 generator is a very good approach to do what you have to when the carriage trade end is a $300,000 electrical installation. That could come later, but I think that the project can live with the generator to run pumps. The water is essential, so I think I'm all in favor of it. I think it is the last piece of a very long and hard-fought project. I think it needs to be done, so I would.
Could you, okay,
encourage
could, if you want to get the total that you're requesting, Ken?
Yeah, Tim's getting there. It is. So the
Okay.
total that you're looking at there, $180,450 includes. Let me explain the wellheads. When we walked the property with the owner of American Well Company, he is looking at 2, possibly 3 wellheads at a total of $15,000 to $18,000 per wellhead. And this will all be dependent on what he gets for output when he starts drilling. He won't know this until he starts drilling. So included in that quote of $180,000 is the high side if we have to do 3 wellheads. It may be less than that. It may only be $30,000 for wellheads. So we won't know this until they actually get out there and start pumping. On top of that, we have a quote from one irrigation company. We plan on going after more irrigation companies. One irrigation, Mag Irrigation, quoted us $127,900. So what they will do is come in and tie into our wellheads that have the generators. Each wellhead will have its own generator. They will tie in water lines to that and run them underground. So our big main field hockey all-purpose field and the 4 baseball fields in surrounding areas will all have water as we need it.
Okay.
Now, critically, this will be 10 weeks out of the year, July, August, and September. But as I stated, before any baseball or softball game, they will probably opt to run the water, prepping the fields, keep the dust conditions down. And lastly, I also want to throw in here, Hugh hit on a point. Yeah, this project kind of brings it home. I don't have plans to build anything else at these fields right now. We're going to have 4 fields fenced, grass growing, grass maintained. We're going to have field hockey playing. We'll have all purpose. We've also already reached out to outside leagues who will be able to use so we can start making money with them. So really the goal, I think after this, however we get this irrigation done after that, we need to focus our goal back on long-term fundraising for our endowment. We do have a nice little endowment, but we need to grow that. And if we spend the next couple of years growing that to say $500,000, $600,000, $600,000, then, some return from that endowment can go into the ongoing maintenance of these fields, because it really doesn't make sense to be fundraising for operation expenses.
Okay, Ken, there's a question from John Bell.
Yep.
Hey,
John?
Hey, Ken, how you doing?
Good, John.
Good. Ken, I'm a big baseball guy, but, and I hate to be like negative on things, but this is like the project that never ends.
And that's
I feel that too.
I feel that way. I don't even have kids using these fields, and I completely agree. It really does feel that way. It's taken so long to come this far. Everything seems to go slower. So we're close. I mean, the fencing's going to be completed here, and now we just want to keep the grass wet. And I apologize for how long this has taken us.
Honestly, I'd like to. I tried to drive through the property the other day, but the gate was locked. I'd like to go up there and see what it looks like.
So I'm not sure if it was you, John, or one of the officers in town told me that. First of all, I'll share the combination with any of you who wants the combination. You can go anytime, or I'll meet you there. If we leave those fences open, then the police department can come down and keep an eye on things for us. However, if we lock the fences, then the police department won't go down and check on it. They won't get out of their cruisers and to go unlock fences to go on the property. So what we need to do before we leave those gates open for anyone to just drive in freely, we need to somehow with telephone poles protect these fields so kids can't just drive, kids or anyone can't drive on the fields. So they're not protected yet. But
Yeah,
anyone on this committee wants to go out there with a combination, I'll be happy to share it with you.
Yeah, I agree with the fence. Keep the fence locked. But yeah,
Right.
I'd love to go down there and
Yep.
check out the fields again.
Yeah, it's so far it's been a great walking park for me and my dogs. It's beautiful out there. It really is. The trees that were donated from Sylvan last year look great. We've got another 20 trees donated this year that we're going to get in the ground in the next couple weeks. So, little by little each year, it really starts to come together nicely. And, happy to say that I drove through there last spring and softball was having a game and field hockey was practicing and baseball was practicing on the lower fields. There was an ice cream truck. There were 100 cars. Like it's on. Not this week because it's wintertime, but it's really happening over there. And it's really makes me happy to see.
Any other comments? Hugh, I think you had a hand up.
A couple of comments. One is, I know maybe a year or so ago, Tim Gillespie did a drone fly and has absolutely gorgeous pictures. I don't know where they are now, et cetera, but it's just spectacular. The other thing was only, it may turn out that this irrigation is never used or hardly used because it rains, well, if not all summer. That would seem sort of ridiculous. On the other hand, you can't count on it. So this is an insurance policy. It may be fairly expensive, but when you have something you can't use and have continuing maintenance expenses because of the weather, and there's a way to prevent that by a capital investment, it seems to me that's the right thing to do. So I'm all in favor.
The other, if you remember, we had a request for the campground for, I believe, 3 fields at $4.5 million. And this is much bigger, broader. The total that we will have contributed will be, it'll be up there, nearly $2 million. But the rest of it has been raised privately.
That's a significant amount of private money as well.
Significant, and still private things like the Sylvan. The other day, Sylvan gave us the cemetery group 4 trees, and I looked at the prices. I mean, that is a huge contribution of trees. So there's a lot of private money and volunteer time that's going into it. This has been a volunteer project. Does anybody else have any comments? And I'd like to know what you would like, if anyone would like to make a motion to accept this as a formal application and recommend that it go to the public hearing.
Tim Gillespie would move that we accept this application for $127,900
No.
and move it forward to the public hearing and town meeting.
I don't think that's the correct amount.
No, not
Ken?
even close.
No.
Ken,
That's just the irrigation. It's 180,450.
Sorry.
Ken,
Yep.
I don't,
would you please say the total amount,
The total amount was $180,450.
which includes the irrigation, the wellheads, and the generators.
Generators.
And
Yep.
it's a maximum amount, actually, because it may only be 2 wells that you need.
Right.
Mhm. So, Tim, do you want to read?
yes, I would amend that to the number that Ken just gave us, 180,000 and whatever it was.
450.
I will second that.
Would you please say the exact number, 180? Do you want to round it up? Round it up?
Yeah, $181,000.
There you
Okay.
go.
Is there a second?
I will second it, Jim Morton. I also note that we are anticipating a refund that happens from the current contraction for defenses, et cetera. Not a sure thing, but the
It's about
but the
18,000.
contract is less than the amount appropriate. These are
The
two
18,000 difference, I believe.
Yeah, you can't apply it directly against, but it's something to remember, I think.
Are there any other comments on the project? All right, then let's vote on starting Hugh,
Ward and I.
Tim,
Tim Gillespie, aye.
John,
John Bell, aye.
Liz,
Liz Collins, aye.
Mark,
Mark Schmidt, aye.
Dale,
Dale Weber, I.
Phil,
Phil Weinberg, aye.
Betty, Betty Slade, aye. That is unanimous, and we will expect you at the January hearing. And if you have any adjustments or anything to it, let us know if it would come in December. Thank you very much, Ken.
Thank you all very, very much. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry to make you wait so long, Jim Hartnett.
Quite all right. I was interested in the project.
Oh, Ken. Okay. Well, I'm talking to Jim Hartnett now. I think he's out there.
Thank you all.
And he's going to come in to talk to us about a project that the town is recommending. Are you there, Jim?
I am here. Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. Oh, there you are. Okay. Hi. Thank you for
Hi.
waiting so long.
No problem. So what I'm looking at is, we've been working with green communities with the state. We applied for a grant to replace the heating system at the town hall. So this would be a heating and air conditioning type system. It would be the splitters. We're looking at 37 indoor BFR heat pumps to replace the existing steam radiators in each space. Each room would have their own individual heat pump that is either wall, floor, or ceiling mounted. We've applied for a grant with the state of $499,000. We're waiting to hear on that. We've gotten some good feedback on it, but we have not received the approval as of yet. In addition to that, we're getting a $10,000 utility incentive for some insulation work up in the attic and a $119,000 rebate from the utility company to bring that. That project itself is about $628,000. But in order to do that, we need to upgrade the electrical service in the town hall. And that would essentially be our match. When we had the consultant in to look at the electrical system, we looked at a number of the issues that we're having throughout town hall, and those include, ungrounded two-pronged outlets, overuse of existing outlets. I mean, the building wasn't set up for the type of electrical use that we're using it for now. So we have a proposal from them, which would be funded separately through the energy revolving account, for them to come in and actually design the electrical service, the upgrades, and the indoor work. I believe that's about $16,000. We put $20,000 aside for that.
You have a grant for that?
That was not a grant. That's coming out of, we have an energy revolving account.
Okay.
So we received, I want to say, close to $125,000 plus from the new school as a rebate when we
Okay.
filed with the state with that, or filed with utility companies. So what I'm looking for is two things. One, somewhere in between $125,000 and $150,000 for the new electrical service and the electrical work that needs to be done in the town hall. And then, and this is a rough estimate, about $100,000 to $115,000 to do repairs on the outside of the building. Mainly some handicap accessibility railings. I don't know if you want to go down for those pictures, you can kind of show you what some of it later. So this is the electrical stuff. We got two-pronged outlets in most of the building. You can see how that's under just about every desk. We have the extension cords with a number of outlets in them. But the exterior repairs, it's, you get so used to seeing it, you don't necessarily see it unless you stop and look. But
Don't worry.
portions of the building are in tough shape. It just does not look very appealing. So, you look at the doors, you look at most of the woodwork needs scraping, priming, painting. The handicap railings are loose. The handicap railing on the side door facing Lee's isn't actually attached to the ground. It just kind of swings there. You can see the trim isn't too bad as far as rotting away like this, but there are a number of locations where you have issues with the trim rotting away. So I would love to have maybe Tim come out and take a look and just give me an idea as to what we should be doing for pricing, if we're in the ballpark or not, what type of repairs need to be made. We've noticed, we took an air conditioning out of the Board of Selectmen office last couple of weeks ago, and the sill at the bottom of the window was all rotted away, so the water was coming in through the window and going down in between the brick and the interior side of the building. So I think we're at the point now is if we don't start doing some of these minor repairs and restoration, it's going to be much more expensive in the future. You know, you can see the step here is cracked. Most of the bricks around the step need to be remortared. You know, and just general cleanup. You know, it's a nice building, but it's kind of depressing to look at when you walk in the door and all the paint's chipping and the wood's rotting away. You know, for when I say relatively short money, I think we can really clean that place up and make it look nice. So I guess what I'm asking of you guys is this something that they would consider funding? If it is, I'd like to refine some of those numbers. And I can get that back to you over the next couple of weeks.
We have a question, Jim, from Hugh Morton. Hugh, we can't hear you.
I'll refer to you, Betty, on what CPC covers, but I think this has been done in the past at historic buildings, so I assume it's all right. I have no trouble with doing the electrical, obviously needs to be done, and cleaning up things on the other one. My concern is more in the background, that there is this idea, which I think is insane, but we'll wait and have it play out, of moving everything into the old high school, and if that ever happened, we're throwing money down the rat hole by doing things for buildings that then become obsolete. I suspect it's never going to happen because of the cost, etc. In which case we need to preserve what we have. And this is preservation. I have no trouble with it. I'm more concerned, I think, about the electrolyzing, which is a more significant capital investment, and also I think is going to blow the heating budget with electrical heat as opposed to the present heating. But that's a separate thing, I think. And as far as we're talking about what you've been presenting now, Jim, which is the repairs and electrical system, I'm in favor of. And again, this is a preliminary hearing, if you will. It's just simply to put it for consideration at the open hearing when any questions people have, plus or minus, can be raised, of course.
You're right. I mean, the electrical costs will go up. I think they've estimated between $6,000 and $8,000 a year increase, but that also includes the air conditioning, which we currently don't have right now. But we're paying on our existing heating and gas. It's going to cost us more for electricity, but we're paying the difference in repairs right now.
Yeah.
We've had the plumber down there on a regular basis, you know, fixing leaks in the steam pipes and maintaining the boiler and so forth. So, yes, more expensive, but our existing system needs to be replaced anyway.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you, Jim. I don't know if others are.
It's dropped my ear. Oh, is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better? Hugh, could you elaborate? What was your point about the heating and electricity?
Well, Jim answered. I was saying that electric heat is much more expensive than anything else, and that the conversion here, and Jim answered the question, that would add to the heating expense that comes out of the operating budget. But that's the other project, if you will, which is not the service electricity for what's being run. It's more the everything becomes electric project, which is major, may be necessary, but my concern there is in connection with the old high school issue that potentially, if that has any reality, put a bunch of money into this building and then turn around and abandon it. We're not there, and the other one may be pie in the sky, in which case it may be necessary to have that project. But my point is really, the vote tonight is to, do we put it on the list to be considered in December? And the answer to that is yes, because that's when we make a decision.
Yes, actually, it's on the agenda tonight, and we have Jim here to talk about that issue of if the decision is made by the town to keep the old school and for the town offices to move into the old school, question is what happens to the historic buildings that CPA funding has been used to I don't want to use maintained, to restore over the years. What protection do we have? In other towns, it's really a mixed bag, but generally, if a historic town building is sold, it would have to have a historic restriction on it of some sort. Normally, it's for the external, at the external side, the external view of the building, with some, ability to do adjustments. Generally, it would go before the historical commission. The new buyer, the new owner, would have to go to the historic commission to make changes, serious changes on the outside. That could be a perpetual restriction, or it could be a 30-year restriction. But this is something Tony Vieira was just talking about too, that some of the veterans were saying, why are we spending money on this building if the town is not going to keep the building? And then the next people will tear it down. And so I wanted to discuss that tonight. It's a serious issue. What do we do if the town decides to sell these buildings? We should think about it in advance, and we have an opportunity right now to put such a requirement on these projects. So, for example, if we give the funding to the Sanford School, it could be with the requirement that there be a 30-year restriction or a perpetual restriction on the external aspects of the buildings. And that could be true of the town hall too. It's a complicated question, but every town who's got CPA has had to deal with it. Now, in private buildings, we now have restrictions on all of them. So we're all set for that. And we have a restriction on the playing fields because that was purchased with CPA funding. So Jim, I was wondering what I caught you off guard here. If you had any thoughts on this? I know that I've heard your opinion on the whole project, but I just wondered if you had.
I guess it depends on the restriction, right? I mean, I look at it as a town building. You hate to restrict yourself more than you have to restrict yourself because you never know what's going to happen in the future. But it's funding being allocated to community preservation, so that, there's an argument on that side as well. I'm kind of waffling a bit here, but yeah.
It would be
pros and cons, it's you don't want to put money into the building and have it torn down in a year and a half.
Yeah. Liz?
Yeah, I was going to ask that you put this on the agenda and then I saw that you had already done it. I think this is really something that I'm glad you're bringing it up now, and we're starting to talk about this early on, because certainly there are people in town that are talking about this and are convinced that maybe this building will be sold. And anybody that has come to me and said anything to me, I know they didn't get this from anyone. I don't know where it's coming from, but I think it's really, really important. Just like the vets feel about their building, we should care certainly as much about our town buildings, our historic buildings. I mean, I can't even fathom somebody coming in and buying the town hall and demolishing it, or the town hall annex. What would we have left? We have nothing. I mean, we've got to do something about that. This is quite a few years ago, and I don't know how it got going, but I know the people that started it. There was word that the annex, the town was going to dispose of the annex. This was a long, long time ago now. And people were so upset about it because they were hearing that, you know, the meeting room, which is the present meeting room, didn't have any chairs, didn't have this. A bunch of people went out and bought all those chairs that were in the meeting room. They thought maybe that would save it. But, you know, it didn't happen, thank goodness. But we've really got to talk about this, and we've got to go slow and not make any, you know, decisions quickly about any of this, because it's really too important to the town of Westport. Thank you.
I believe Mark Schmidt, I think you go ahead.
I've had my hand up a long time.
Oh, Tim.
Yeah, Tim
Yeah,
first.
Your hand's been up since you got here. Go ahead, Tim. Sorry,
No,
Mark.
I was
He
just
pushed you
gonna.
out.
I was just gonna say that I feel the way Liz does about these historic buildings in town. They're the history that they represent, particularly something like the town hall, which was built during the WPA, and it's just loaded with the history of the town. And I think it's really important that the town honor that history. I cannot imagine tearing that building down or having someone buy it and turn it into apartments or something. It's a central part. It's one of the few defining buildings we have that identify a town center in Westport. So I think we should move this project forward vigorously and let the town meeting decide what they want to do.
What do you mean?
If we bring it before the town meeting, once Jim gets his numbers squared away and we figure out what it is and we can fit it in there, I think we should go for it.
Well, there is the question, though, that we would have to put the restriction on it. For example, we say, you know, you realize, because you're a private group, that you have to sign a grant agreement, you know, a registered grant agreement. This is one of the requirements. If we use CPA funds to buy it, it has to have a perpetual historical preservation restriction. There are other things that can be done. I mean, you could put a restriction that it cannot be torn down. You know, if you want, this building cannot be torn down. So that means you're basically lowering the price of the building.
Right.
People are going to not be willing to pay as much if they want the land and they don't want the building. So it affects the purchase price. And it's something that the Board of Selectmen need to cope with, because I did bring it up at a Board of Selectmen meeting. And there was sort of general agreement, yeah, we should protect the building. I felt that at the meeting. Jim, do you think, was I correct? Did you feel that too? Did you leave us?
You're
Jim?
muted.
Jim?
No, I think yes, I think in general, you're going to have support for that. I don't.
So I think we need to look at the question. I've looked at the coalition's website, and pretty much they say you do put restrictions, even, but they don't say for town-owned buildings, always private. So we'd have to do a little bit of research, and I could do that and come up with some, alternatives as to what would be required if this money is granted. So CPA would go to town meeting at CPC and say, we want this much money to be allocated this project, but we also want we require that a historic preservation restriction of some sort be put on it.
I think that's not unreasonable. I think we should do that.
Mark, I think you had your hand up again.
Yeah, Betty, wait a minute. Thank you. There's so many different aspects of this whole question, and I was put on the long-term building committee about a year ago,
right.
and they've been wrestling with this issue of what to do. And it got focused, as Hugh was alluding to, it got focused on this issue of what to do with the old high school. And at the most recent meeting, the sense of the meeting was we don't want to sell the old high school. We want to keep it. We're going to regret it if we let go of it. It's got a gym and it's got playing fields, which are needed by the school system now, and the school administration has their offices there. I mean, there are compelling reasons to keep the building.
Right.
And then there was discussion was, well, we can put all of the municipal offices there, which would mean then that this town hall and the that we're talking about, and the annex, and even the Council of Aging, all of those functions could move into the old high school.
Right.
But the price tag, as it's been estimated, is as I call it, eye popping. It's it's hard to believe that. I mean, that question, I can't see it being answered in the next couple of years. It's good because the monies involved are so large. But if somehow the town has to make a decision, are we going to keep these buildings? Are we going to keep our town offices in these buildings, the older historic buildings? Or are we going to move to a new facility whether it be a renovated high school building or an all new building? And if we want to be a town which is known for having preserved its old historic, these buildings were, except for the town hall, were old school buildings.
Mm-hmm.
The annex and the Council on Aging and the American Legion. But they all need a lot of work. And this is just the tip of the iceberg here for the town hall. But if we make a decision that we're going to keep them, we're going to be a town that has our offices in beautifully preserved historic buildings, then we have to think, in a more holistic fashion. If the town hall is going to be preserved, are we going about it in the right way? Are we putting money into? I know that these issues are desperately, the heating and the electrical and so forth are desperately needed, but there's more to it. And does the building? Frankly, I think that it could be completely renovated and upgraded for a modern municipal building, but municipal office building. But if we take small bites at it, we want to make sure that each bite gets us to the ultimate goal of a renovated building, and so that we're not faced with redoing some of the heating system only to find out that we're going to change some of the interior layout of the building later on, and we're going to have to then alter what we've just put in, that kind of thing. So it's really it's difficult, because I know there's an urgency to do this work, because the facilities are woefully under they're just not adequate. But this is only one piece of a lot of other improvements needed.
Yes, that's we're going to lose Jim. He has to leave in 5 minutes. I'd like again, this was discussed at the Board of Selectmen meeting or Select Board meeting, and I think it's going to be again discussed in the next meeting, but only the aspect of getting people's opinion. Could you, Jim, just speak to what you're proposing relative to the choice? Jim?
I mean, I don't know if I'm ready to give you an answer right now. I think some type of restriction is warranted.
No, I don't mean the restriction. I'm speaking of getting the town's opinion on what we should do with the old school Remember, you
So,
were,
yeah, so the Long-Term Building Committee and the Board of Selectmen, I think, are considering putting some type of referendum or some type of survey out there to see what type of interest there is with the public. You know, there's a significant cost, and it may be relative. If we're looking at upgrading all the other buildings, it may be kind of a wash, but you don't have to upgrade all the other buildings right now. If you want to move into the high school, you need to upgrade that, you know, in the next year or two before we move in. So you're looking at $29-30 million. It's going to have to, with cost of things going up over the last 6 months, you know, that could be 35 million, you know, or maybe a little less, but it's going to be a significant cost. If we stay in our existing buildings, yeah, it's not ideal, but can we survive another 5, maybe 10 years without doing any major overhauls? Yeah, probably. But you know, if you want to do it right, and then the question is the old high school, is it cheaper? And we went through this when we built the new school, right? We looked and we said, you know, it's more cost effective for us to build a new school than to renovate the old school. So if you're going to renovate the old school for municipal uses, we'd be better off just building a new municipal complex, maybe on the campground site or on part of the high school site, and build it to the needs that we're looking at, as opposed to trying to fit something into the old high school. But again, yeah, that's going to be up for the voters, I think, to decide, either through some type of survey or referendum question, non-binding.
okay, well, thank you. I know you have to leave. I think Hughes had his hand, and
Yes.
you can review this later, Jim.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Sorry to keep you so late.
Nope, no problem.
Know how hard you work. I think Hugh had his hand up first.
He's muted. Oh,
Well,
there we go.
so the issue about moving everything into now old high school was first mentioned 2 or 3 years ago, I think, maybe even longer than that. And at that point, my recollection is that whoever was talking about it said that he thought all of the stuff we're talking about would occupy about 20% of the building. That, I think, if that's accurate, that means you've got a whole lot of excess space you're going to pay for, or everything expands, or I put it, it becomes an attractive nuisance in the sense that a variety of people would be looking to put their organization on a non-rent paying basis with free, maintained by the town space, etc. Jim's comments about the other ones, etc., all the stuff is perfectly legitimate. It's a matter. I think that the price tag, which is at least 30 million, it sounds like, and climbing, doesn't take into account the issues that we're talking about are moving things over from this, dealing with now obsolete buildings that may or may not be very marketable, but all of this is future. And so at this point, I have no objection to having these potential projects to be considered in December. Now we're just sort of getting the lay of the land. I do think that the conservation of a town hall may be an impediment to the conversion of the high school, which I think would be a very unwise thing to do, but others may differ. So for the moment, I say put it on the December consideration for presentation to the town next spring.
Okay, I believe Liz.
Yeah, I just want to mention again that what I said the first time, you know, I really meant the town hall annex. I mean, that is our history. And if it goes, what do we have? We don't have anything. But just as important as that is that I've been to a couple of these meetings, and the most important part of doing anything with any of these buildings is going to take time. And I get the feeling when I go to a meeting that everybody's in a rush. We've got, and I know it's costing money. Sure, it's costing money, but look at what we're, faced with. We're faced with, not keeping up with these buildings. and now we're going to pay for it. But let's slow everything down. I think there'll be a plan coming up shortly, and it looks pretty good. All I can say is, give people time to think about it, talk about it. It's going to take time. And I think what you said a little while ago, I got a little nervous when he said, let's get proposals by December. Well, December's half a month away. How can we do that? How can anybody do that? I'm not sure. But just keep in mind that this is really, really very important to me, to you, to everybody in Westport. And let's do it right this time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Liz. Dale?
Yeah, to me, I mean, this is a huge issue where what we're talking about now. And it seems to me, if I was understanding what Jim was presenting, that it is way larger than what he came here to get information about and possibly request of us. And his request at this point, and I don't believe he was requesting the heating and the air conditioning and all that stuff. He was talking about safety, I thought, electrical stuff. And we have
external work, both electrical
and external.
and external.
That's correct. But we have the people that make this town run, the people that work so hard are in a position of working in this building, whatever the larger issues come down to be. And I think it's a good idea if we have any input and ability to influence saving these historical buildings. That's an important thing to do. But I feel like perhaps it's that's ongoing, and that's certainly not decided by December or anytime soon. And if Jim was coming to us with a request for a couple of specific things that weren't hugely expensive, but that would make working conditions safer and better, then perhaps we should break that off a little bit from this. Or am I misunderstanding? I could be misunderstanding.
The discussion is not on the project right now. We moved from the project to basically to what CPA requires.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So generally, CPA requires for private, and I think for sure town buildings, a preservation restriction of some sort be placed on it. We have not done that. We have not asked for that since the very beginning of town buildings. But now we're in a situation where there is discussion of selling the town buildings.
Right.
Now, if you upgrade them, they should sell better. I mean, you should be able to get, a better price. So if that investment does that, that's one thing. But putting a restriction on it that it cannot be torn down, one, and that the exterior cannot be grossly modified, that they would be subject to the opinion and probably the authority of the Historical Commission as to what they want to do. That lowers the value of, it lowers the selling price of buildings. Value is a different thing. So, and I have to bring it up. I had to bring it up because this is now before us. The town is going to do a survey. Probably they're going to do it. They were going to do a question on the ballot in April. But I think Jim is going to suggest that they do a survey instead. They're going to do certain offers to certain alternatives, and people will vote on them. People will select. And I'm saying one of the variables in town is that CPA funding has been used for these buildings. And therefore, CPC has a responsibility to consider how do we preserve them. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Let's move on to others. John? Hugh, I know you're there, but John hasn't spoken.
Jenny, I know you like to use that email thing, the Mass Historic Preservation email. Have you put anything out on that to see what other towns are doing?
No, I haven't, because I was waiting to talk to you guys first. I don't want to I have talked with the Community Preservation Coalition, but not about town buildings. But I want to do that, but I just was trying to get your feelings or your recommendations on how we should. This is going to happen soon. This survey, and it'll happen before May, so we can always pull something back. We have till January at least to decide whether or not we will say, yes, you need to put a historic preservation restriction on this building. And right now we have the opportunity because there's a request for funding. Otherwise, we can't just say, I'm sorry, but you can't sell it because you need that historic preservation. We have no, what's the word, no hook to hang it on. Right now, we have a hook to hang it on. That's my point.
We have leverage.
Well, we have leverage. Yeah, we have leverage. It isn't something they need to do right away, although I understand what Dale is saying, that it's safety. Yeah, he hasn't put it that way, but it's certainly electricity is always safety. The other part's not. It's the preservation of the building. It's not, these are not easy questions. Mark, do you have oh, sorry, Hugh, you had your hand raised.
I don't mean to monopolize the conversation, but I think what is, we had a report of the Finance Committee from Cindy Brown, who's on that committee as well. It's the first time that some specifics are being circulated. I have my own doubts about surveys because you can get whatever answer you want by how you phrase it most of the time, but be that as it may. But the other thing is, we're not deciding today to make a recommendation about anything. All we're saying is consider it again in December. We can come to the same conclusion that we aren't ready to do it, or we are, or these are provisions, or it's premature. I'm just saying that I would not vote not to consider it, because I think that would be inappropriate, but that push it into the next round when we have more information, presumably, and then we decide where we are in terms of whether it's something we would want to recommend now or something that needs further development.
Well, this is not going to be decided tonight because we only got the information today, and we told Jim realized that stuff had to be in a week early. The only one that came in, the ones that came in a week early, but this one he knew wouldn't be decided tonight. I brought this up with the Board of Selectmen, I think 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago Monday, and they agreed that there should be some protection of the buildings, but I don't think it was thought through enough. What does that mean? And so I'm just trying to bring this to the forefront because we're CPC and we're supposed to be preserving buildings. That's all I'm saying. Mark, do you have anything to say?
Just Jim's proposal is he's requesting monies from us for very specifically for the electrical work and some repairs and preservation of the exterior parts of the building. And the work related to the new heat pump system he's, as he says in this proposal, they're applying to for a green communities grant, a $500,000
Right.
from them. So that's what it is. It's not necessarily the electrical work is, I guess one can consider that as part of preserving a historic building, because you don't want to,
Yes.
you don't want to risk having a fire or something. So I think it's appropriate. I think it should be moved forward to our next meeting. And yeah, as we're all saying, there are many different aspects to this whole this whole issue.
Mhm. I'm not trying to get into the full question. I'm just, I will contact the Community Preservation Coalition, Stuart Saganar, and ask him what he thinks. And also, as I believe John suggested, to put a question on the Mass Historic Commission listserv when professionals come on. I'm a little embarrassed to do so, in the sense that I know that there should be restrictions. And we haven't done it. And for town buildings, even just very small amounts. I mean, they were talking about if it's over $25,000, they put restrictions, historic preservation restriction on the building. They don't say town buildings. And that's where I always made a distinction, but I may have been absolutely wrong. So I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll do those two things. And I guess we'll think about it. If anybody else has any other ideas, and then we'll put it on the agenda again for December. And we can continue this discussion. If everybody agrees, we will continue the discussion. We're not rejecting it in any means. We're continuing it to make it a formal discussion at the next meeting. Does everybody agree to that? Do I need to do a vote?
No.
No, I agree.
Yeah, let's just do that. Anybody else have anything to say about this topic?
Call
We
the
should all
question.
think about it.
I just have a
Okay.
question.
You called the question?
Oh, I had a question. Can I just ask one quick question? I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying, Betty, that you're not sure if this applies to town buildings,
Yes.
or just that we never did it?
Yes, well, two of them. I'm not sure. Oh, no, I'm not sure. That's why we didn't do it.
Okay.
But for 19 years, we didn't have a restriction on the playing fields, and that was required within a year or two, and we didn't do it.
Okay.
There's no CPA police. That's what I kept being told many times. I know that time is flying, but we usually have short meetings. But now we have one more project, and then we'll just do bills and we'll be finished. Tim, this
Yeah,
is a project on a possible playground project.
Yes, we're proposing to bring. We need to the playground at the town hall annex, which was built 28 years ago, has lived beyond its useful life by about 15 years. It's in bad shape, and we are proposing that we want to build a new playground there. We get into the same issue with if the town were to sell the annex,
Yes.
what do we do with the playground? I think we can solve that by cutting the playground out from the property and have it remain town property. But we have some proposals, and the number that we're looking at is probably around $350,000.
Wow.
I can show you some stuff. Let me see. Just to give you an idea, if I can find what I'm looking for here. I can't find it there. Hold on. What we're thinking of is we want to, let me see, this one might have something. Yes.
Big toys.
This is a proposal that is being developed by John LaRue, who is the guy responsible for the first playground at the town hall annex. And what we're thinking is we want to get away from wood, because wood tends to be a problem over time. And so we're looking at all these different concepts in the modern day playgrounds. And the proposals we're getting have probably more equipment in them than we would ever use. But you sort of you get to cherry pick the pieces that you want to place on the property. I think we could easily do the town hall annex playground for less than $400,000. We're going to get more definitive numbers. We would just like to be put on the agenda for the December meeting. We do have a proposal that we could present. It's all written up. Dana has put it together. We probably need to refine it some, but we basically are moving in this direction. We're hoping that we would get some help from CPC. We'd probably put a number on CPC that might cover the project, but at the same time, we're looking at other sources of income or financing for this project, which may reduce the amount that we would actually spend from CPC. But basically, that's it. We're looking at building a new playground. We're also looking at upgrading some of the Bicentennial Park playground. There's a couple of swings that have disappeared, and we wanted to do some upgrading there, but not as ambitious as building a new playground at the annex.
Hugh,
I don't know if Dana is here or not. Dana was going to be here, but I don't see her on the list. No, she's not here. But anyways,
you have a question, Tim.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I have no opposition to putting it on the list for December. I have significant questions about the magnitude of it, but that can wait until December.
Well, we'll have more precise numbers that'll be more meaningful at that time.
Yeah.
Because not just building the new playground, but dismantling the old one and preparing the site is a significant component of the project. So we got to make sure that the proposal we put together includes all of the expenses that would be associated with the project.
It's 350,000, 400,000. I guess that sounds overwhelming to me for a playground, but I don't know.
Well, we've gotten bids of over 500,000, and we're just not choosing to go
What's
there.
on the issue here?
And the second issue is, again, Tim, find out if the town sells, can they split that? Because, you know, we've also put in money into in the back of the annex.
Yep.
So, I mean, can you see why I'm worried about all this? We
I
put in
know
money
exactly
in
why.
all these projects and they can just go. I just think it should be considered. It kind of shocked me. You know, I never thought about the town selling these properties, but CPA has thought about it. So
I think we should make it as difficult as possible for the town to sell these properties.
There you go.
I do agree, yes.
Very encumber them with restrictions.
So anyway, we'll move this one. We've heard about it. We've seen some pictures. We'll get more a formal application on December 15th. Remember, it's December 15th is the date. It's a week later than normal to give people more time. And maybe the town, I doubt it, but the town may have thought some more about the project. So I have bills, and and this is estimates to replace. Oh, that's different. Wow. Okay, so Maria, could you put up the bills, Tim?
Oh, do I have all the bills? Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
I hope you do.
Hold on. Yes, I do.
I don't.
I just have to find the packet. Cancel that. The packet. I have to go to the end.
Yes. Oh, I found it, but it'd be good if you could put it up.
Right there. Oh, wait, I'm not sharing it yet.
Not yet.
Let me share it. There you go.
So these bills, the first three bills have been paid. The last two have not. And we had the check already for 350,000 for the Berry Hill Farm. So that will go out. It will be deposited very soon. We voted on that. The roofing, who was the liaison on the COA roof? I believe it was John and Tim.
I did a lot of the liaising on that.
Yeah, Tim had the roof. I had the bell tower.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's
Jim, I watched them do it. I was working in Linden Grove. I watched them working over there and saw them finish it. So it is finished. It was below bid.
There's an issue though that has nothing to do with the roof itself, but it has to do with the fact that the chimney, which I didn't realize isn't actually a masonry chimney. It's a plywood box with fake bricks stuck on the outside of it.
Oh my
Some
God.
of those bricks are falling off and there's some leaks around that chimney. So we're going to have to do something about that. Maybe some of the extra money that's left over we could put towards having a mason go in there and do something with that. My thought would be to rip all those fake bricks off and just shingle the bloody thing.
You mean just shingle the chimney
The chimney box, yeah.
or take down the chimney?
Well, they probably
don't
need
use
the
it.
chimney. They don't use it for anything, don't they?
Well, if it's
heating
wood,
appliance?
I hope not.
Well, they probably have insulated pipes inside of it that are venting furnaces or hot water heaters or something.
Well, could you check into that? Or somebody, could you check into that?
Yeah.
And I think that is considered part of the roof. In the past, when we found issues with the roof, we used the leftover funds to fix them because we don't want a big leak occurring.
Right.
So it was 85,000. So there's 17,000 left, which within that amount, what can you do? I don't think you could put up another chimney.
No, but I mean, it's a box. You just have to treat it with some kind of outside finish. So
Yeah.
I'll go look at it. I'll find out what it's actually doing.
But we have paid this, and so I'll
The
go
roof
down.
has been paid for.
And you give me a hold if you want it to be looked at. The Atlas Preservation is this is a gravestone restoration project. A lot of putty. It's special putty and supplies, and mostly supplies and equipment. The gravestone, our group has cleaned and sprayed 5,000 gravestones, which is remarkable, I think. And
Pretty impressive.
we have repaired 600 gravestones, repaired and leveled. It really varies in time. I mean, leveling takes a lot less time. And I really, well, anyway, these are our expenses. And does anybody have any objections to any of them?
I
Do I have
move
a
we pay
motion?
them all.
No objection, pay them, yes.
Okay, Timothy, propose, I think your motion, and Hugh second.
Second.
Let me get the list of people. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Tim,
Tim Gillespie, aye.
Ron,
John Bell, aye.
Liz,
Liz Collins, aye.
Mark,
Mark Schmidt, aye.
Dale,
Dale Weber, aye.
Phil,
Phil Weinberg, aye.
Betty Slade, I thank you very much. They've all been approved. Does anybody else have any topics not reasonably anticipated?
I would move we adjourn.
Oh,
I
second.
second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
Aye.